The Chicago Bears are the number one seed in the NFC. How did this happen and who is responsible? Is Ryan Poles actually good at his job, or are the naysayers in the preseason right and someone else should get all the credit for this 9-3 start? I'm Bob Weiss. I'm here with my good buddy Justin Oniemi, and we'll discuss that and more on this episode of the Halas Huddle.
All right, we are hyped. We are hyped to be here talking Bears, number one seed. And because of that, we decided we're going to do a giveaway. So I'm rocking it right now. We got our Halas Huddle swag. There we go. So comment FGB in the comment of this video, and everyone who comments will be entered into a raffle to win a Halas Huddle t-shirt.
That's right. Big week, Packers week, fuck Green Bay. Get those FGB comments in the comment section. You'll get entered to give away for a t-shirt. All right, Justin. As we kind of teased, the Bears are 9-3. Ryan Poles is the man who makes most of the decisions, if not all the decisions for this team. So, he took a lot of heat in the preseason. Left tackle wasn't good enough. You don't have a single draft pick in the Pro Bowl. I'm sure there's other things that people are criticizing for. So where do we stand on Ryan Poles? How are we evaluating how he's done his job so far?
Well, I think the number one thing he did was bring in Ben Johnson. So however much credit you want to give him for that or take away from him potentially for that, I think that's going to play a part of a lot of the success moving forward. But you have to say he's done a good job. First of all, I still go all the way back to the Bryce Young trade of that first round pick, because that could have been his decision of, I'm going to use this number one pick and build a team. And he said, no, I'm trading it. And those types of assets did build up. We're seeing the products on the field of that trade. But I think this draft class looks pretty good. Monungai, when they got him, looks very good. And a guy like Nahshon Wright, you signed him. You got more depth than we might have thought, because they've been tested with their depth, and it's coming through. So I think a lot of credit has to go to Poles. And honestly, when you're this successful, or hopefully as successful as we see them headed, who cares who gets the credit?
Yeah, I don't necessarily care. I just love that they're 9-3, but I do just think that because of all the noise, all the hate that Ryan Poles was getting in the preseason, I think now that this seems to be working, we need to analyze how much of it is him. And I think you mentioned two of the biggest things right away. Maybe a lot of people want to say, hey, this is Ben Johnson. This is Ben Johnson's impact on the team. This is the Ben Johnson effect, as we like to say on this podcast. Well, who brought in Ben Johnson, right? Ryan Poles brought in Ben Johnson. Now, this is going a little off the deep end, maybe a little conspiracy theory, but when the Bears kept Matt Eberflus for that third season, how much in the back of his mind did he know that Ben Johnson was going to be coming to the Bears the next season? We know that he has some contacts with the Ben Johnson camp through Boston College, and maybe through those back channels, Ben's like, hey, Ryan, I just can't leave Detroit right now. We got a good thing going. I got to give it one more chance, but if you got that job next year, I want it. And so they just let all that nasty stuff happen with Eberflus and Caleb's first year, but he knew the light at the end of the tunnel was actually coming. He knew that Ben Johnson was coming.
Well, I'm going to give you some credit on that thought, because we even here on this show were wondering, were the Bears, by keeping Poles, losing their opportunity to get a guy like Ben Johnson? And so Ben Johnson was not coming here if he didn't have faith in Ryan Poles or know he could get rid of Ryan Poles. So let's just assume it's a happy marriage at this point and that there are better days to come. But it's looking pretty good right now. And I personally like to give him some of that credit.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing you already touched on a little bit is that trade, that Bryce Young trade, that trading the number one overall pick for what turned out to be the number one overall pick the next year. On a lot of fronts that was problematic. Jalen Carter looks like this all-pro, right? And, Darnell Wright, while a good player, wasn't really, always potential, not much production. And now look at Darnell Wright. He's a borderline all-pro right tackle. And Jalen Carter has kind of leveled off as just a very good player. He hasn't ascended into Defensive Player of the Year talk yet that you thought maybe he would. So just when you impact those two, and now you got Caleb Williams, who still is well short of the potential we believe him to be. But had he played like this, had the wins continued to happen last year, all the hate and the Jaden Daniels comparison. And now look at this year. Drake May is playing even better than Jaden Daniels did last year, but because Caleb Williams is looking better and they're winning, you don't see all that hate coming anymore. So there's so much that just happens when you let the process play out that just Ryan Poles maybe is looking a little, the left tackle, right? Oh my gosh, how could you not have any plan at left tackle? You're not have any plan at left tackle. Well, it hasn't had that big a deal this year, right? Because he addressed the rest of the offensive line, right? Certainly Nate, what was the Nate?
Nate Davis?
Nate Davis, is that the right guard I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Didn't work out, and they got, why didn't you bail on Nate Davis earlier? Well, sometimes it's hard to do that. But now look what happened. They addressed the interior of the offensive line, Darnell Wright, borderline All-Pro. So now you're kind of planless, or just let's have a bunch of decent options at left tackle and see which one's the best. Looks a lot better when the other four work out for you.
Well, you brought up Nate Davis, so I will say, as far as big-time free agents go, he still seems to come up short frequently. But free agency is a gamble. Let's not forget that. And you might forget that a guy like Drew Dahlman was a free agent because he's just come right in and done his job. So, I mean, that's obviously a hit. But you look at Dio, I don't know, didn't look good before the injury, and who knows what the future holds. Nate Davis, complete disaster. So you're going to have hits, you're going to have misses, but let's not forget how many hits this guy has had. And now the trajectory looks great, and he's been the one in charge to make it happen.
I mean, we're at the point now, I'm going to say this believing I'm correct, but I do believe that literally every single player on this roster is here because he has signed a contract by Ryan Poles. I know some players might have been here before him, but I think they've all signed an extension with it. So this roster that's 9-3, this coaching staff that's got this team to 9-3, Ryan Poles has signed literally every single piece of this team. And I just think it's time to start talking that, hey, he had a rough stretch, lots of losses, 100%, but now it certainly looks like all those things that could have been misses are working out, and we got something to be happy about right now.
Yeah, great call on that, because for a while he wasn't re-signing anyone. And I think until maybe Cole Kmet, that might have been the first guy that got money who was there before him. So nice call.
So you guys in the comments, when you're putting your FGB message in, or maybe you've already entered the t-shirt giveaway, let us know what you think of Ryan Poles. Are we giving him too much credit now? Was everyone so negative before, and now we're so positive, and as always, the truth somewhere in the middle? Well, let us know where you land on Ryan Poles. All right, so in the preseason, Justin and I got together for a couple episodes that were fun to do. We got kind of mixed reception from the Halas Huddlers out there on them, but they were what could go right and what could go wrong. And the thought of those episodes were, then it was August, so it's the beginning of August. If we're late into the season and the Bears are making a playoff push, what's that going to look like? Or they're late in the season and we're making a push to a top 5 pick, what does that look like? So, Justin, you want to kind of take us from there?
Well, the second one was we weren't even late in the season. We were like midway through the season and already tapping out. And that certainly hasn't happened. So I think we're way more towards the, hey, what could go right? And our very first point right off the top was the Ben Johnson effect. It's almost like we coined it right then. And we've been talking about that week in and week out. And to me, it's been all positives. I mean, you even through the 0-2, we were still saying, the way they're talking, the way they're approaching this seems like the right way. And you can't question this 9-3. I mean, people have tried, but they're 9-3. They've won 9, they've lost 3, which is very, very impressive in year one of a new regime. So I think that has really hit more than it's missed.
Yeah, I mean, Ben Johnson's been all over this. In our What Could Go Wrong episode, so the what could go right is Ben Johnson takes command of this offense, and it looks like Caleb Williams makes a jump, all the weapons are doing their thing, right? And then on the what could go wrong, we actually had 2 things. One was Ben Johnson struggles as a head coach. And I can honestly say, I think Ben Johnson as a head coach has been better than Ben Johnson as the offensive coordinator. He's been very good as Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator. So here we are. The Bears are absolutely not tanking this season. They are excelling. So being worried about Ben Johnson not being a good head coach is completely opposite, because he's been awesome as a head coach. And the other thing we talked about was if the running game doesn't get off the ground. And look, the Bears are literally the best rushing team in the NFL. That is the Ben Johnson effect. So if we're going to be a playoff team, which now it looks like we should be, Ben Johnson effect is huge. And then
well, one more thing. To your point that he's been a better head coach than an OC, well, we know he's not technically the OC, but play caller, let's say. We talked about how the players would be clicking, and Caleb Williams will make a great big leap in year 2, which I believe he has, but statistically maybe not. Odunze would be having this kind of year. Loveland would be having this kind of year. I didn't look at the stats. I hope you pulled a few. These guys aren't, I don't think, having, blow up type of seasons, and they're 9-3. Imagine when some of these things start clicking, because I still think the potential for the guys I just mentioned is still through the roof. And I still have a lot of faith in Ben Johnson as a schemer and a play caller and working on the finer details so that this stuff starts clicking. So I'm kind of like, wow, they're 9-3, and it isn't even the best case that we were talking about.
Correct. Now, so I think part of why it's not even the best case offensively we're talking about is because it was our second point in that video was that Dennis Allen takes command of this defense, and we see his imprint taking these athletes who Ryan Poles has accumulated and turning it into a more functional defense than with the Eagles. I mean, Eagles wasn't a terrible defense. There was just, I think, some effort and, giving up issues towards the end of last season that made it look so bad. But here we are. Dennis Allen has taken the defensive responsibility completely off of Ben Johnson's plate, where he can just focus on being a head coach. He can just focus on the offensive part of the ball. And it's just been even really better than I thought we might have anticipated back in August so far.
Well, what I would definitely like to give us a pat on the back for is basically predicting or calling the resurgence of Tremaine Edmunds. And it's very unfortunate that he's now injured and going to be out for at least 2 more weeks. But you said it on the episode we did back in August. He is an athlete. He is fast. He is long. He can do a lot of things because of that. And Dennis Allen has found ways to unlock him. So we were seeing maybe a Pro Bowl season, or definitely a very high functioning season out of him, better than the 2 years prior, which if you look at the stats weren't even as bad as we kind of remember. Once again, when you're that big time free agent, it comes with expectations. But he was really having a good season before he went out, and I hope he's able to still come back and impact this team down the stretch.
Yeah, I mean, you just need that. And, the Kyler Gordon part of it, and, there's just been so much things that another part of our What Could Go Wrong episode was the depth chart. We were worried that we didn't have enough depth. And again, we've been ravaged by injuries on the defensive side of the ball, but again, maybe let's give some Ryan Poles some more credit. The guys at the bottom of that depth chart, and then give Dennis Allen the credit for him, have come in and been able to produce, and they really haven't skipped a beat. So that's just been phenomenal to see. So another thing, what could go wrong? It absolutely went the other way, and it's because of the coaching staff they put together.
Tying this back to our King Poles point, it is seeming like it's a very good, perfect marriage here, because he's bringing in the right type of guy. They talk about like it being the right type of guy to buy in and take coaching from a really good coaching staff. And that's why there is kind of this next man up. They truly don't seem worried. That's like, yeah, all of our 4 of our top 4 linebackers are out. Here we go. And the guys that step in are ready. And that's impressive. So kudos to everyone. And again, it's why you're 9-3.
Yeah, and maybe another point that we made about the Bears making the playoffs that we were definitely on the right side was the NFC North as a whole taking a step back. I mean, Justin, you said it a few times, but certainly maybe it started that episode that it's great that the Bears got Ben Johnson, but it's huge that the Lions subtracted Ben Johnson. And I think that 12 weeks in, 13 weeks in, we've seen that in Detroit, where they're just still kind of struggling consistent on offense. And, their defensive staff seems to be fine, I guess. I don't know. But, it's just a huge thing that the Lions were supposed to be runaway Super Bowl favorite. And here they are 7-5. And what does it look like the missing link is? Ben Johnson leaving Detroit. And now the Bears taking a step forward, coming to Chicago has just been huge.
Absolutely. And then the other team is Minnesota, taking a major fall down. And the point we made then was J.J. McCarthy hasn't played yet, guys. And I'm very bitter that Caleb Williams was labeled as a floor of bust. But I believe there's a statistic, I'm not going to get the stat right, but of 852 quarterbacks that qualify, and by qualify, play a certain number of snaps and games and all that, he is one from the bottom, 852 out of 853, and Jamarcus Russell is the only one below him. So if you want to say bust, now I'm not saying he's a bust. I'm just saying early returns aren't looking so good, and that's why their record is in the cellar. And it's so nice to not be there, isn't it?
It's wonderful not to be in the cellar. We'll get to a little bit about who's in the cellar in the NFC North. But, I mean, certainly at the time we made this video, we weren't predicting J.J. McCarthy to be a bust. We didn't think he was going to be terrible. We didn't think he was only going to play 4 games and Carson Wentz was going to have to play the rest of the games and then undrafted free agent. We didn't think that was going to happen. We just thought that Sam Darnold had a hell of a season last year and they're probably not going to get that level of quarterback play this year.
He's still having a good one too, isn't he?
Who's that?
Sam Darnold's still having a good season.
Yeah, he's still having a good season. He's kind of tapered off the last few weeks, but yeah, he's still looking like definitely better than any quarterback on the Vikings right now. So the last point that we made in our video, which I'm curious to what you think about this, we talked about the defensive line. If the Bears are going to make the playoffs, all the acquisitions and the depth acquired of the defensive line are going to pay off, and we're going to see that on the field. So how do we actually feel about that evaluation at this point, even though here we are 9-3?
Well, I think Montez Sweat has played like a true difference-making end. We still see plays where he misses, and he's not a 15-sack guy, but he has played very, very well. As for the rest of the line, it wasn't what I expected. You know, we were saying Jarrett would come in and make a very big impact. He's looked better the last couple games, but overall, has he been impressive? Now, that's a guy where I think he's doing stuff we don't see. I think this team is also 9-3 because of how they are between Tuesday and Saturday in preparation for games. And maybe he's making a profound impact there, just like you assume Joe Thuney is, just like you assume guys like Jonah Jackson and, I was going to say Byard, but he's performing on the field at a very, very high level.
He's been good.
But, I was surprised when I heard that part too, because we basically said you're going to need that. Now, we did say if the secondary is that good that it doesn't matter, and the secondary's been very good. The names have been surprising. I didn't have C.J. Gardner-Johnson on my bingo card that he would be filling the Kyler Gordon role, or that Nashawn Wright would be fulfilling quite honestly, the Jalen Johnson role more so. I was going to say Tyreek Stevenson, but he's actually probably been their number one. So they haven't quite performed to the level I expected, but it hasn't hurt them either.
Yeah, it's just been interesting because I think statistically, it's almost like Caleb Williams a little bit. Statistically, the defensive line has not produced. But I do think when you just watch the games, it's not like there's huge running lanes constantly for the opposing team. It's not like the quarterback is always comfortable in the pocket. There is a pocket, they got time to throw, but it's not like they're just standing there able to have all day. There at least are offensive linemen being pushed into them, right? So the defensive line is making impact that way. And I think another point that we made about Don Robinson and Austin Booker making steps, and now they're not exactly fully impact players, but they're not zeros. They're on the field, and you feel their presence out there. So I think that is another step in the right direction. So those things have happened. Montez Sweat taking a step towards being a Pro Bowl player again. Booker and Robinson being, productive, being able to be on the field has been great. And then you look at Shamar
Turner.
I always get it wrong. Turner. He hasn't played enough for me to remember the last name. Yeah. And Dio being basically complete zeros hasn't really changed the impact the defensive line's made on
the Turner injury was a bummer. Well, all injuries are bummers, but it was particularly a bummer because he was starting to come on, and surprisingly, they were liking him on the edge. And it would have been interesting to see, again, how is Dennis Allen using these guys? Because I think we can't forget that either. We started with that, and I think we could end with that. He's finding a way to get the most out of who's out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And so this Sunday, a test about as big of a Bears game as there's been in a while. Let us know in the comments below the last time you think there's been this big of a regular season game. But Bears are 9-3. Packers are 8-3-1. They meet in Lambeau, big time nationally. The big afternoon spot, the 3:25 game. So what do we think, Justin? It's a huge game. We're super pumped for it, but what real impact does the outcome of this game have on the rest of the season?
Well, I think it's a huge impact, and it's funny. This is always a rivalry, but it actually feels like a rivalry because you expect both teams to perform and come and bring their best, and it hasn't been that in a very long time. Now, I think I saw something that said if the Bears win, they have a 68% chance of winning the division. But if the Packers win, they have like a 74% chance of winning the division, and the Bears go down to like 22. What's strange about that to me is that this is game 1 out of 2 against them in just 3 weeks. And really, like we kept saying in the preseason and probably could say right now, you want to at least split. But boy, do you really want to get that first one. If because then the split is guaranteed and maybe you sweep. Not to mention, this is at Lambeau. So it would be great. I mean, the Bears are certainly riding high. The only thing I really wouldn't want to see is them lay an egg, but that just doesn't seem to be where this team is at. They're going to be prepared. They have the talent. You got to execute. And you're going up against a really good team. You're going up against a really good defense. And you're going up against a pretty good offense. So it's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying not to put too much impact on this game where, unless you completely lay an egg and, there's, unfortunate injuries on top of it or something awful, truly awful happens, maybe it could have an impact. But, I think everyone was hoping that the Bears were going to split these games with the Packers. And this one on the road is probably the one they were going to lose. And the one at home in 2 weeks is the one that, we're going to win. So I just, with that frame of mind, I just don't want to, oh man, if we lose this game 23-19, that means the Bears are a fraud. And all this. That's just not the case, right? When good teams play each other, one team is going to win and one team is going to lose. And it just doesn't mean that the loser of that game is somehow just a terrible team. It just means they didn't make enough plays in that game to win it. And when you get a chance 2 weeks later, maybe you will make enough plays. I think the thing that is exciting about this game, the thing that, I think we're all just pumped up is that there's true, real belief that the Bears can go into Lambeau Field and win this game. And that's really exciting. And you want to see that hope and promise fulfilled. But I'm just not going to get too caught up into it. If the Bears play, just a decent, good game and lose, I'm just not going to, lose my shit over it.
Well, it's interesting. Like when you frame it as, hey, good teams play each other and there's a winner and there's a loser, it reminds me of like Kansas City and Buffalo basically playing like every single year. And Buffalo, quite honestly, seems to have Kansas City's number. Come the playoffs, it switches. But this is like that, but they're in your division. And so what if for 5, 6, 8 years, like both these teams are good and you're getting 2 of those games a year? You want to win them all. You're probably not gonna. So, hopefully, like you said, it's competitive. I want the Bears to come out on top. We'll see on Sunday. I'm excited. Very, very excited. FGB for a Halas Huddle t-shirt.
That's right. Comment, get in that giveaway. So if the Bears are to come out on top, who are we thinking is going to be making the big plays? Who's the pick to click on Sunday?
Can I say offensive line?
I think that's fair. I mean,
Ben
Johnson gave them all a game ball.
Because let's be honest, and we nailed that again, by the way. Because you pretty much were saying.
I did. I gave it to Monungai and Swift, and then in giving it to them, I basically said it was all the offensive.
Yeah. So I think this is a game where you're going to want to control the line of scrimmage, both in getting the running game going, establishing play action, and protecting Caleb, because this team has some pass rushers. I think I heard something that the game where he held the ball the least in terms of getting rid of it was recently, and it was against Pittsburgh, who also has some notable pass rushers. And I believe that was Trapillo's first game at left tackle. So I think schematically the strategy is going to be run the ball and control the ball and quick passing game. So that means offensive line needs to step up. So I'll give it to pick to click as the offensive line.
So I am going to take your cheating of taking 5 players a step further and take the entire Bears secondary. It's hard to say it's just going to be just one. Obviously, Byard and Nashawn Wright have delivered turnover after turnover, but the Packers are coming into this game leading the league with the fewest turnovers. And we just know that the Bears defense is basically good enough because they're getting turnovers. So they need turnovers, and it's going to have to come. I think it's going to have to be in the secondary, because I don't think our defensive line is going to be making enough plays, enough impact to really force the turnovers themselves. So,
well, we're recording this Thursday night. It sounds like to me there's a chance TJ Edwards is coming back, but you don't know at what level. But just last week you got Kyler Gordon back. And what does Dennis Allen do? He's out there and basically dime But you're playing dime with CJ Gardner-Johnson and Kyler Gordon, who can play corner, safety, linebacker in terms of their mentality. So that being said, I know the Bears consistently have said every week is a new approach. So do you copy what was successful last week, or because you put that out there, do you zig when they zag or zag when they zig? What do you think, Bob?
I mean, that's kind of why I want the secondary as a whole, is because there are so many playmakers, and I don't know if it'll be in the exact same way they defended the Eagles, but I do think that Dennis Allen will find a way to get CJ Gardner-Johnson and Kyler Gordon on the field at the same time, making impact plays. And then you look at the other ones, Jalen Johnson, Kevin Byard, Jaquan Brisker, and Nashawn Wright. Like, all four of those guys can make plays too, right? And, so it's just six of those guys in the secondary flying around. And then Stevenson comes back too. I mean, we're talking about just really, to our first point, Ryan Poles. I mean, that is a talented secondary.
Absolutely. So with Jalen, I know he made a play last week, but there were other times he looked a little rusty. Hopefully he's gotten a little more reps and things like that. And so he's getting more and more back to himself. But to your point, there are so many guys that are out there making plays. We need to see it on Sunday. You said Green Bay rarely turns the ball over, which is true. Jalen Hurts rarely turns the ball over, and they were able to get a pick on him and force a fumble on him. So hopefully, when you have the team that gives it up the least and the team that takes it the most, something's going to have to give, I guess, right?
Yeah, 100%. And that's why I'm saying, if the pick to click, the Bears win, I think it's going to be because they force the Packers into some uncharacteristic turnovers. So hopefully that repeats.
Sounds good.
All right, so it's been a little while since we've done our NFC North power rankings. We're going to do a little different. Me and Justin are going to tag team them this week. But you ready to just get going?
Let's do it.
All right. In number 4, in Week 14 NFC North power ranking is the Minnesota Vikings. All season, we're saying they're just a boring 8-9 team, but it turns out they're way worse than that. Uncharacteristic. Kevin O'Connell not able to get production out of his quarterback position, and it has been a rough go. Vikings number 4.
I wouldn't have thought it at the beginning of the year, but right now, number 3 has to be the Detroit Lions. As we're recording this now, I'm trying not to look. They're doing well against the Cowboys, but they're basically in a win or your season is in jeopardy kind of game, and we never would have thought that. To your point earlier, offense has been shaky at times, so has the defense. They're fighting for the playoffs, and there are 2 teams that are definitely above them. What you got to do?
Number 2 is going to be the Chicago Bears. Despite having the number 1 record in the conference, to be number 1 in these NFC power rankings, you got to go earn it. I'm looking forward to next week when we can confidently say the Bears are number 1 in these rankings.
Yeah, but right now, that is the Green Bay Packers. They look like a complete team. The offense is clicking. The defense is one of the stingiest in the NFL. But to your point, the Bears have a chance to unthrone them starting this week and FGB.
As always, fuck Green Bay.
I keep it clean, but still, the sentiment is there.
All right, Justin, this was a lot of fun. I'm glad we got back out here doing the Monsters of the Midweek episode. If you haven't yet, make sure you comment below FGB. Get yourself a nice Halas Huddle t-shirt. Represent the podcast. Represent the Bears. Your division-leading Bears right now. And just, let us know how pumped you are. How pumped are we that finally we're here again? Finally having a good season again.
This podcast feels so different, Bob, and I'm very happy to be in the spot we're in now, where we get to talk about exciting Bears football. So This Sunday's huge. Like you said, as long as they don't lay an egg, I think I'll feel good regardless, but I'm very excited to see.
All right, before we break it down, I'm going to give one more. Fuck the Packers. That's for you, Rob. I want to make sure we got one more.
One for Rob, for sure. All right. Bear down. Claws up.
Ready, break.